Welcome to the INFOWARS Nightly News. It is Friday, November 20th, 2015, and I'm Leanne McAdoo. Here's a look at what's coming up tonight.
Tonight, emergency workers report that the public was kept in the dark about bombs found in Germany. Then, Obama dismisses tracking refugees because of their constitutional rights. And how you can get the last laugh on Hillary. That's next.
This new competition, this new contest, $5,000 for first place, $1,000 for second, a free Hillary for prison shirt, and a laughing Hillary pin for third place. Clinton goes after Laugh Factory comedians for making fun of her. And I saw this yesterday and barely read it. I read the whole thing this morning. This is crazy. Official Democrats are saying, we will put you out of business like it's New York mob or something, and I'm going to break your legs. And, of course, George Carlin criticized presidents, Republican and Democrat, you name it, Jim Carrey. But, I mean, they all came out of the Laugh Factory. Jerry Stein.
Clean, pure drinking water. You can't survive without it. But where do you get it? Alexa Pure Pro is a brand new, groundbreaking, gravity-fed water filtration system that is like no other. The Alexa Pure Pro transforms water from virtually any fresh source into clean, healthy drinking water, pairing the unprecedented superfiltration power of an all-new gravity block core with a hybrid chromatic shell. It removes up to 99.999% of impurities, including bacteria, viruses, fluoride, disinfectants, volatile organic contaminants, and hormones. Filter capacity up to 5,000 gallons. Stainless steel construction. Easy assembly. Low maintenance. Replacement filters are simple to install. And now, as part of an exclusive limited time introductory offer, you can save $20 off the retail price and get free shipping. This is a limited time offer, so order your unit today and receive free shipping and $20 off. Go to InfoWarsStore.com or call 888-253-3139.
In the wake of the Paris attacks, we have seen German authorities scrambling to silence critics of this refugee crisis. They're saying, you know, we're going to be bringing in even more refugees. We've seen the German police covering up instances of rape and other crimes involving migrants who've been flooding into the country via this wave of refugees. Well, now we're learning that German authorities may have covered up a potential terror attack at a soccer stadium earlier this week.
Explosives were found during an attempted terror attack at a German soccer stadium on November 17th, but German authorities covered it all up according to an eyewitness who was told to keep quiet about what he saw. A paramedic saw an explosive device in an ambulance before the Germany versus Netherlands game, which was canceled after French intelligence told German authorities about the impending attack involving several bombs. Authorities later claimed no explosives were found, but the paramedic says he witnessed the bomb and was ordered not to talk about it after special forces arrived on the scene. 3 police officers were also reportedly disciplined for leaking information about the alleged discovery of the bombs. German authorities may have decided to conceal the fact that the explosives were found in order to prevent a panic amongst the fans who had gathered around the stadium before the match, and also to protect German Chancellor Angela Merkel, who has opened the borders for Middle Eastern migrants to flood the country, including ISIS. This is Kit Daniels with InfoWars.com, and you can find out more at InfoWars.com and PrisonPlanet.tv.
And another deadly terrorist attack took place today, this time in Mali. The assault began about 7 a.m. when several jihadists exited at least one vehicle that had diplomatic license plates. They were armed with AK-47s and grenades, and they stormed a luxury hotel with guns firing. Islamic extremists armed with guns and throwing grenades stormed a luxury hotel in Mali Friday morning. Hostages were taken and at least 27 people have been killed. Senior officials say the jihadists stormed the building chanting Allah Akbar, while some hostages claim they were freed only after reciting verses from the Quran. Fears remain that the attack in Bamako may be linked or inspired by the Paris attack, where French nationals were targeted for the government's decision to carry out airstrikes against ISIS. Mali is a former colony of France, and they've been battling several terror groups for years. A French military operation in Mali in 2013 against Islamic extremists in the northern half of the country was the first of several foreign interventions that President Francois Hollande has launched as president. Troops from the UN, the United States, and France have already been sent to Mali to support security forces there on the ground. Read more on this developing story at InfoWars.com. So we're definitely seeing the swiftness of the military response from the West. Now, Malian soldiers and UN troops had the hotel surrounded, and as of 4 p.m. Eastern, the attack on the Mali hotel was over. Now, the Radisson chain said that as many as 170 people were inside the hotel when this attack began, and the attack came as the hotel was hosting diplomatic delegations. They were working on a peace process in the landlocked country, which has been struggling with Islamic extremism from several different groups since at least 2012. Now, as of now, the U.S. has been shielded from these type of attacks from jihadists, but of course that could all be changing soon as we are beginning to see the rise in Islamic extremism making its way to the West. Now, we're being told that the vetting process for any of the refugees coming in, it's all under control. The Department of Homeland Security says we're going to be tracking all of them. Well, you know what? That might all be a little too late, because now we have the FBI Director James Comey coming out and saying that Islamic State is now virtually in every state here in the U.S. In July, Comey said, "This is the new normal," after announcing the arrests of 10 people believed linked to Islamic State plots, including some suspected of planning attacks to coincide with the July 4th holiday. And there were many other attacks that really aren't thwarted attacks that really aren't being reported in the mainstream media. And of course, Comey coming out saying this is the new normal means that we're going to be ramping up the surveillance state. Now, you'll recall earlier this week, we reported about a Syrian refugee who went missing in Louisiana. Now, he was in the process of being resettled into the Baton Rouge area, and he went missing. And the charity that was helping him to resettle said, you know, we're not involved. It's not our job to track him. And Louisiana state officials heard about this missing Syrian refugee from the media, not from the Obama administration. And of course, this is after we are being reassured that the vetting process is, you know, it's great. The federal government is monitoring them. Well, now the Syrian refugee is still missing. He has not checked in with authorities, even though they reported that he's on his way to D.C. I don't really know what he's on his way to D.C. to do. Is he going to meet there with the president so he can roll him out as the token Syrian refugee? He has not checked in with the authorities, and federal authorities say they do not know where this man went, and they can't keep up with him because of his constitutional rights. They actually said that his constitutional rights protect him from being tracked. So he's not a U.S. citizen. He doesn't have constitutional rights. That's the excuse that's given for them being able to surveil people across the globe, because they're not American citizens. And of course, you know, once they get here in the country, though, apparently it's a free-for-all. And the Obama administration has absolutely no problem tracking the rest of us here. In the days since the Paris attacks, intelligence heads in the U.S., like Comey, have been calling for even more surveillance controls, and Rand Paul is calling BS.
So when they stand up on television and says, the tragedy in Paris means you have to give up your liberty, we need more phone surveillance. Bullshit. Are we in the free speech zone? But here's the thing is, they are collecting your phone records as we speak. They did not miss a beat. And even though we voted on reform, all of your phone records are still being collected and stored in Utah. Did it stop the attack in Paris? Not one iota.
Now, Rand Paul is absolutely right. Now, the program that collects America's phone records in bulk is set to end this month under a program called the USA Freedom Act. However, newly disclosed documents show that the NSA has found a way to replace the email program. One of the ways is the collection of bulk data that had been gathered in other countries. Because of the way the internet operates, domestic data is often found on fiber optic cables abroad. So there's one workaround. And the NSA had long barred analysts from using America's data, but that had been changed in 2010, as we learned from the disclosures made by Edward Snowden. Well, the other replacement source for this data was collection under the FISA Amendments Act of 2008. It permits warrantless surveillance on domestic soil that targets specific non-citizens abroad. And this includes their new or stored emails to or from Americans. So there's obviously always going to be some sort of a workaround, we knew that they weren't going to actually be ending the NSA surveillance program. And so you can see how that earlier argument for not wanting to track the missing Syrian refugee is absolutely invalid. It's a total fallacy. It does not even fly. Now, something else that's making this the new normal here in the USA is blatant propaganda being pushed in schools. Now, a teacher in Utah is having to apologize after enraged parents were concerned about an assignment that was given to 9th grade students. The homework assignment was making ISIS propaganda. Now, the assignment was given this Wednesday. It was a first-year teacher, and she gave it to about 60 9th grade students in a world civics class. It wasn't approved by the school and wasn't part of any official curriculum. So who is this teacher? How are they just sneaking this in here? But the assignment asked kids to design a propaganda poster for one of the terrorist organizations that they'd been studying up on. And the worksheet said that the purpose of the poster was to help students understand the goals of terrorist groups and the methods they use to gain support. But if you actually look at that worksheet there and see how it's written, scroll up a little bit. If you see there, it's basically glamorizing their tactics, saying they have all this money, they have really attractive social media, they have a staying presence, and the Muslims there, they would rather be under their control rather than the groups that have been forced out. So, I mean, this is blatant propaganda. And of course, one of the parents was really concerned about this because in the course of researching for her assignment, she actually Googled how to recruit for ISIS, which of course might trigger some unwanted attention and put her on a terrorist watch list. So good going there, teacher. Now, let's talk about, just briefly some other student fascists that we've got here in the United States. We have, once again, we're witnessing these demands being made by social justice warriors, and they're winning. Now, Princeton University has agreed to weigh in on the idea of erasing Woodrow Wilson's name from the buildings there. This was one of the demands that was being made. This agreement was signed by Princeton's president, and it ended a 32-hour sit-in at the president's office. So we're actually witnessing student activists getting things done. It's just a little too bad that those things are absolutely frivolous and they don't affect any real change. If you want to topple the legacy of Woodrow Wilson, don't worry about erasing his name from buildings. Topple the Fed. That is Woodrow Wilson's legacy. He was the one responsible for empowering the Fed, who is the true oppressor of all Americans. But that's not going to work for social justice warriors. That means we would have to come together. And of course, they use the whole divide and conquer tactics. And of course, that is all by design, because as long as we're divided, no real change is going to happen. Now, here's a report from John Bown talking about something else that is totally by design, this refugee crisis.
Zbigniew Brzezinski's world-dominating elitist management of Eurasia is completing its final maneuvers on the grand chessboard. As the United States, a hijacked world superpower government, veers down the path to an engineered final endgame towards completion of a corporocratic New World Order. The primacy of the last remaining superpower, i.e. the United States, and the importance of destabilization in the Middle East and the acquisition of the wealth of Eurasia has reached its summit. Now the next phase is being unleashed on an unsuspecting populace. In the words of Albert Pike, Satanist, Ku Klux Klan founder, and revered prophet of the New World Order, in the Third World War, we shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and of the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere the citizens, obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries, will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude, disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in the public view. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement, which will follow the destruction of